And we're going to stick with baseball, Rob. Gabe Kapler, former player and current manager for the San Francisco Giants, also a former manager of the year, Rob. And he announced on his blog last week that he would not stand for the national anthem because of the direction of the country. I believe those were his exact words. It's basically a protest of the, ability to go and buy assault weapons. And such weapons were used to kill those school children in Uvalde, Texas last week. So he had been avoiding the anthem by just staying in the clubhouse during the playing of it. He did announce yesterday that he would stand, or maybe announced it today, but that he would be standing today for the national anthem because of Memorial Day and honoring those who had, fought and died for the country. And so he did stand today, Rob, and he said he's taking it day to day, but I assume he's going to continue his protest at least for a while. But what are your feelings on just this whole situation with Gabe Kapler?
Bravo to Gabe Kapler from this standpoint, Chris. When we talk about the military and people putting their lives on the line, it's for our freedoms and the liberty of this country to be able to peacefully protest when you're not happy. That's what makes this country great. Most places you can't do it, Chris. You just can't. Right. That's what his right is. You don't have to agree with him. He's not forcing you to do it. He's not telling you have to believe in his ideology or whatever he believes. But I believe people have a right of expression and peaceful protest, and I applaud him for making it public. And what's weird is he was staying in, Chris. You remember, that's what happened to Mahmoud. You remember?
Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, formerly known as Chris Jackson.
He was doing the same thing, and he wouldn't come out. And then somebody noticed him, and the league made him come out, and then they put a rule in and all kinds of stuff.
That was back in the mid-'90s.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. But he didn't he didn't hand out no press release, Chris. He stayed in the back.
The Nuggets were fine with it, Rob, because it was going on for maybe a month.
For a while.
Or
he
maybe
just stayed
longer,
back.
Yeah, for a while, and they were fine with it. Yep.
Because he wasn't making
public.
Right, because they noticed he was never out there. And then the question started. So, it's just interesting now to see the pushback. Now, he's in the ideal situation, Gabe Kapler, just like Colin Kaepernick was. It's not a surprise, Chris, that San Francisco is a hotbed. And we've seen Steve Kerr.
So when you say
San Francisco,
right. No, that's a good point.
I'm just saying, look at all three of these guys.
Golden State, right.
It's very liberal, and people are expressive and willing to allow people to do that. It's not Kansas City, Missouri, or you know what I mean? Some place where maybe there's a pushback or whatnot. I don't believe any Giants fans are like, oh, I'm not going to the game because he's doing this. And I think his convictions are strong and real. And the same way Steve Kerr came out, and you saw the press conference, Chris. He was upset.
Really shaken. Yes,
he was shaken by it. His own father was, of course, killed by terrorists, and the idea of the assault rifles, how many kids have to be killed in this country. We get it. And this is not a political show.
Right.
But I applaud Gabe Kapler for believing in what he believes in and willing to take a stand, whether he does it for a week, a month, the rest of the season. Whatever he does, drawing attention to the problem, I respect.
Yeah, I got several thoughts on this. I agree with you on the Americans' right to protest peacefully. It does separate our nation from many out there. Not all, of course, but many. There are some places you protest, you say anything untoward about the government.
It's a wrap.
And you are
you're in jail,
arrested,
Chris.
Or worse. I mean, let's just keep it real. And so that is something we're able to do in this country. I agree with what he's protesting about the assault rifles or assault weapons. That 18-year-old kid who was able to go and buy assault weapons, Rob.
He can't get a drink,
He couldn't have gone to rent a car.
Right, he can't
He
get
couldn't
a
have
car
gone to buy
or a
a
drink.
bottle of, 40-ounce bottle of beer. He couldn't
Is that
have done
unbelievable? Just think
and
about
yet
that.
he can go right and get assault weapons. And as you know, I'm a gun owner. So I'm not, nobody's saying you can't own a gun. Nobody's saying you can't hunt and have rifles for hunting and things like that. But these assault weapons are just, let's just keep it real. It's unnecessary and not, so I agree.
What's an assault weapon for? Mass destruction against
Right.
human beings. That's it.
Right.
Okay,
Absolutely.
you don't need you don't need an assault rifle to go hunting against a bear or a deer. For real.
Absolutely.
Let's be honest.
You're right. You're right. And so I agree with what he's protesting. That's my first point. Second point, Robin, you brought up an interesting point in that he is in San Francisco, the Bay Area, and all these guys have been Kaepernick and Steve Kerr. But I also feel like there's a racial element. And I feel like the reaction to Gabe Kapler doing essentially the same thing as Colin Kaepernick for a slightly different cause has been night and day. I think for the most, because while they might support him or just not make a big deal out of it in the Bay Area, today today everything is national. So even if the Bay Area supported him, people in Kansas City, as you mentioned, or St. Louis or wherever, could still raise a ruckus and make it a problem. And so I've seen two things. I've seen one, that the commentary, for the most part, Tony La Russa spoke out against Kaplan.
Most of the other managers
Kapler.
were right.
Yeah,
most of the other
most of the managers
right.
And the nation, the response, for one, it hasn't been nearly as big of a response as Kaepernick or, as you mentioned, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. When they didn't stand for the national anthem, it became, oh my gosh, what is going on? Everybody's commenting on it. All the news shows are talking about it. It's everywhere. All right. And then they turned it into something that it wasn't, which was being disrespectful to the military. They haven't done that with Kapler. And I know today he's, standing, but from the day he announced it, I haven't heard much about, but you're disrespecting the military. People have been able to keep it focused on what it was, a protest for assault weapons, nothing to do with the soldiers. And that wasn't the case with Kaepernick. It wasn't the case with Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. He's not being called an SOB, which Kaepernick and any others that knelt were. He's not being told, go back. If you don't like it here, go to Europe.
Go back to
wherever,
Africa.
whatever his European ancestry is. Yeah, go back to Europe. None of that. And Kaepernick, and to a lesser degree, but still to a degree, Rob, you remember this, Kaepernick and Abdul-Rauf lost their careers.
Right.
Kaepernick's lost his career. Now, we'll see if he gets back. But even if he does get back, he's lost 6 years of what may have been a promising NFL career. And Abdul-Rauf ended up having to go play overseas. And so that's a major difference that I'm seeing in the response to when a white manager protests like he is, and when a black athlete, and I don't think manager-athlete is a big issue. I think if it was Dusty Baker doing it, I think it'd be a bigger issue than Gabe Kapler.
I don't disagree with that. I really don't. I don't disagree. I think that's fair. I think it's honest. And I guess my first response was just, when you asked me what I thought about it, I just thought, as I was in favor of Kaepernick, as you know what I mean, I'm consistent that people have a right to do what they want, whether there's pushback or not. But you always get a sense that there's something that separates the way people are treated, and oftentimes, Chris, not always, often, race does play a part in this. So I don't think you're off base.
Right. And I think the thing too, Rob, and like we said, I agree with this issue that he's protesting Kapler. I agree with what Kaepernick was protesting. But let's keep it real. I mean, I've said this before, Rob. I think in a lot of cases, people, when an athlete or really a sports figure speaks out against something, whether they just speak out or whether they kneel for the anthem or don't come out or whatever it may be, generally fans, when they agree with your topic or, your issue that you're protesting, they like it. But when they disagree with it,
right,
they don't like it. And
to
your point, we happen to agree with these issues, but what if someone let's say the abortion issue, whatever side you're on or whatever side that athlete or manager could be on, if one protested that and didn't go out for the anthem or whatever, and a lot of people wouldn't like that, but in being, as you said, consistent, you have to understand it's the person's right to protest. And as you said, that's one of the things that makes the country great. And so I just think we have to be, like you said, consistent.
It's about
not hypocritical.
It's about being consistent. And we've seen this, Chris. If the, Charlottesville, Virginia, where they had the Ku Klux Klan or the race,
right,
they had
right.
permits. They had permits that they could get from the city and have their parades and spew their, whatever they believe in
right.
or whatever. They have that right. And people have a right to be on the street and shout them down, have their
right.
own signs, or let them have their day and do what they want to do. Yes, that's the way it's got to be in order to be fair, whether we agree or disagree with the issue.
No, that's a good way to put it. So, all right, 877-99 on Fox, 877-996-6369. Let me say this lastly, Rob, before we go to the listeners. I do feel like, and I said this with Kaepernick, and I'll say it with Kapler, and neither one of them is disrespecting the flag or the anthem or the soldiers, right? They've made that clear. Kaepernick went out of his way to kneel, which he thought was showing respect for the soldiers, and Kapler obviously is standing today. But I would say, Rob, that the people in America, the American citizens of all races, that the flag and the anthem represent are more important than the flag and the anthem themselves. Not that I get it, they're symbols and their people are, they're important, but the people that they represent are more important. And so it should never be that you put the flag over the American citizens that the flag represents.
100%.
Or the song over American citizens, right?
It's about the people. It's about
Absolutely.
the people. Always.
Absolutely. Your reaction to Gabe Kapler not standing for the national anthem except for today because it's Memorial Day.
All right, Chris, let's kick it off with Marshall in Minnesota. You're on the Odd Couple, Fox Sports Radio. What up, Marshall?
What up, guys? Just stuck in the Taco Bell line, but I thought I'd call.
That's all right. What are you getting?
Getting a couple of the burritos and stuff like that, and I love the soft shell tacos.
Nice.
Just can't resist them. Anywho.
Be careful with that. Don't go overboard.
I know, right? Exactly.
I love the soft shell, too. I don't like the hard shell.
Yeah, I've just always been the same way. Anywho, what I was going to call, though, is I was going to say, obviously I agree. I'm happy that we have the rights to stand or sit or kneel, however you want to say, protest. But, I think one of the reasons why people aren't caring as much, I don't think it has to do with race or the fact that he's an owner. I think the sad part is that, manager. I think the sad part is that, because of all this stuff, even if they don't mean it to be against certain things, they mean it to be specific things, it's that because of all of this, the national anthem, sadly, in America just doesn't mean as much as it did even 10 years ago. Because now some people are kneeling for it or standing for it. I think people, before it was like when you hear the national anthem, I remember during my high school, it was like you'd hear it and you just had the music. It didn't have any singing.
Right.
And you would think about, America and the soldiers and all that. Nowadays, the sad part is too many people hear that and they jump to the other things. They jump to, what does Colin Kaepernick think, or what does this manager think, right? And again, I'm not even saying those guys. My views are a little different than theirs, but
right.
It's not the fact that they're doing it. It's the fact that now the anthem doesn't mean America. It used to. Kind of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting, and
Appreciate
Rob,
the call.
that's
Thanks,
why
Marshall.
you've brought up the notion that just don't play
Eliminate
it
it.
before games.
Chris, we don't do it anywhere else. And when
Right.
people go to work, when we start our radio shift, we don't stand up for anything. And we've stood up for it more than the average Americans.
Right.
Because it's a part of
Being
our
at
job.
sporting games. Right.
We've been at games our whole lives, Chris, for 30-some-odd years. Am I right?
Right.
We've all done
Right.
it. Rob in Texas, you're on the Odd Couple, Fox Sports Radio.
Hey guys, I've been listening to y'all for a long time. I love you guys, man.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
I'm in Texas, man, and just to share a different perspective, this shouldn't be political at all. That's what the problem is. They never let a crisis go to waste. And instead of respecting the families and looking at ways to solve issues like this, like not letting TikTok raise our kids and fatherless homes, lost children, confused children, things like that. It has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with politics. The Second Amendment isn't to protect us from being able to hunt bears with AR-15s. It's to protect against tyrannical governments.
Yes.
And the same governments that you mentioned that you can't protest, what's the first thing that they did? They disarmed their people. What's the first thing that they did in Ukraine when Russia came to invade? They armed their people, okay? The good guys with guns are patriotic in protecting our families and our countries. It has nothing to do with being able to kill bears. It's about protecting us from a tyrannical government so that we can continue to have our freedoms. Because you know what happens? The government, they don't let a crisis go to waste via COVID, via defund the police. And you see how all of that stuff is backfiring right now. Crime rates are up.
Okay, all right.
Right. I hear you,
right.
and I understand a lot of what you're saying.
But I'm not.
And
I'm
you
not,
brought up fatherless homes, and well, I get what he's saying. Like, but that's where, unfortunately, Rob, I think it has become too political. In that, yes, I think fatherlessness is a major problem in America. Yes, I think kids and mental health and kids being raised, by social media and a lot of things that the right will point out are problems. And so is the fact that an 18-year-old can go and buy an assault
Exactly.
weapon. Like,
And
let's not politicize it and say it's all on the, this side is all right or that side is all right.
And
there can be a combination where both are right on some parts and both are wrong on some parts.
And here's the other part, and we could I want to take another call, but it doesn't happen, Chris, in most other nations where kids are slaughtered in situations like that. That happens
because you can't get those
right. Yes, it happens.
It's proven that can deter stop things like this happening.
Because it does, but it happens here more often.
And again, Rob, that's not to say some of the points he brought up aren't legitimate.
Right, but you can't just say
act
that.
Like, oh, so this is the problem. So let's buy assault weapons. Why?
Right, you can't even rent a car or get a beer, Chris, at a bar, but you can get an assault rifle. It doesn't make any sense. Okay,
Right.
All right, here we go. Let's go to Steve in Florida. You're on the Odd Couple, Fox Sports Radio. What up, Steve?
Not much, man. Hey, I first of all, that I agree with what the last caller said. I thought his point was valid. I do believe that an 18-year-old shouldn't be able to get an assault rifle. But what I was going to say is I agree with his right to protest. I think it's not people are not up in arms because he's not the first cowboy over the hill, so to speak. When Chris Jackson did it, nobody had did it before. When Colin Kaepernick did it, nobody had did it before. And then we kind of understand the situations and rights. So it's not.
So you don't think race had anything to do with it?
I think you always have certain variables, but this is not the first time someone did it. It was such a big thing with Colin Kaepernick. Now I'm a basketball coach. People sit down, and people don't even look at them crazy because of the fact that it's already happened. Like you said,
and maybe because of 2020 when people took to the streets and people maybe have a better understanding. Even the league, even the NFL, not baseball, the NFL changed its policy. So that's a fair point that he That
made.
is.